Welcome to Session 6, Climb the Ladder of Integrity. Let's review for a moment where we've come so far. In Session 1, we began with the community temperature reading, our beginner foundational skill. In Session 2, we did stop mind reading and clarify expectations. Then in Session 3, we did genogram your family. Our fourth session was explore the iceberg, and last week was incarnational listening. Now, this session builds on the previous skills and is more challenging. Again, we call it the ladder of integrity. This is used when something is bothering you, when you've been experiencing tension with someone or a situation in which you find yourself perhaps angry or frustrated or bothered, maybe even hurt. Other times it has to do with the fact that something important to you, that is something you value, is being violated. Let's review the purpose of the ladder of integrity that's written in your workbook. It is to clarify your values by processing your thoughts and feelings, and if necessary, to assert yourself respectfully. Let me say that one more time. The purpose of the ladder of integrity is to clarify your values by processing your thoughts and feelings, and if necessary, to assert yourself respectfully.
Here are some examples. Every time you're out to dinner with your friend, they take phone calls. It's getting to you, but you're not sure whether you have a right to say something. You have a family member that tells racist jokes. It really bothers you, but you don't know how to address it. You call your friend, but they never call you. Why does this aggravate you so much? A coworker continually talks negatively about another coworker, and you have this growing uneasiness about it. Your friend consistently takes needless risks when driving, and you have conflicting feelings about it. You're on edge every time you call home because there's something about the way your mother or father talk to you that disturbs you. You're becoming conscious that you don't like watching movies that your spouse or someone else picks that have inappropriate or unnecessary sex or violence in them. Climb the Ladder of Integrity is a personal journaling tool. It is meant to help you get honest and clear about what's going on inside of you, to discover your values and how for you they're being violated. Once you identify why something is important to you, then you can take responsibility for it. This, of course, involves slowing down for reflection. And that's what the ladder of integrity is all about. It's meant to help you respond thoughtfully, respectfully, and effectively based on your values, rather than merely being reactive and blaming. In other words, it enables you to live with integrity. What I mean by that is what's important to you on the inside is congruent with what you are living on the outside. So let's go back to a few of my earlier examples. Every time you're out to dinner with your friend, they take phone calls. So instead of getting frustrated and saying nothing in an effort to be nice, or say something sarcastic like, "Oh, nice of you to join me again," you climb the ladder and you get in touch with your value of having a relationship where you respect each other by giving your full attention to one another. Or you have a family member that tells racial jokes. It really bothers you, but you don't know how to address it. So instead of avoiding them or saying something like, "What's your problem?" you climb the ladder and you get clear about your value for the dignity of all people. You call your friend, but your friend never calls you. Instead of deciding, "I'm not going to call them anymore," you climb the ladder and you get clear on how you value mutual initiative in this particular friendship. You are on edge every time you call home because there's something about the way your mother or father interact with you that you find disturbing. So instead of making excuses of why you can't visit them, you climb the ladder and realize that when your mother or father speak to you, your own sense of value and dignity feels diminished. You prefer they speak to you clearly and respectfully. So you take time to prepare to have that conversation with them. I have learned that in order to have a healthy relationship with myself and others, I need to know my values. I need to be congruent between what I value and what I'm living. Climbing the ladder of integrity helps us move towards this healthy integration. A lot of us don't realize how much depression and anxiety can stem from living out of fear of expressing ourselves. Unfortunately, most of us have not been taught how to discover or uncover our values. The reason the ladder of integrity is so important is because Scripture tells us we are each uniquely created in the image of God with distinct preferences, hopes, dreams, and values. No one else can live your life and express your values for you.
Now, climbing the ladder of integrity may sometimes involve moral issues of right and wrong. Other times it may involve gray areas or personal preferences. So for example, in Galatians 2, your Bible study, we saw Paul's integrity caused him to confront Peter about his hypocrisy by not eating with Gentiles in the church at Antioch. Or it may be a moral issue such as pornography or abusive anger or stealing. Other times when we are talking about integrity, we're talking about what Romans 14 calls gray issues. Gray issues refer to things that are not necessarily right or wrong. We may differ on the kinds of movies we watch or how far above the speed limit we go. Paul writes in Romans 14, "Some consider one day more sacred than another. Others consider every day alike. Everyone should be fully convinced in their own mind." Now remember, the ladder of integrity is not a conflict resolution tool. Clean fighting, the next skill, will be used for that. The purpose of this skill is for you to get clear and clarify what's going on inside of you so you can identify your values and then, if appropriate, respectfully respond to them rather than react or blame other people. Now notice the progression of the ladder in your workbook. Notice we begin at the bottom and go up. Numbers 1 to 6 have to do with what is going on inside of me. 1, right now the issue on my mind is. 2, I'm anxious in talking about this because. 3, my part in this is. 4, my need in this issue is. 5, my feelings about this are. And 6, what my reaction tells me about me is. Then it moves to what I value in numbers 7 to 10. Number 7 is, this issue is important to me because I value, and I violate this value when. Now you'll notice a star next to this because this is the heart of what you're trying to get at in the ladder of integrity. Number 8, I'm willing and not willing to. Number 9 is, one thing I could do to improve the situation is. 10 is, the most important thing I want you to know is. And then finally, the last 2 sentence stems deal with what I hope. Number 11 is, I think my honest sharing will benefit our relationship by. And finally, number 12 is, I hope and look forward to. For now, we're going to show you a model of someone using the ladder of integrity. Her name is Rebecca O'Connor. She's married to Max, and they have a 5-year-old daughter named Lindsay. They received an email from their daughter Lindsay's teacher. This is what the email said. Hi, Mrs. O'Connor. We want you to know that we have noticed that Lindsay has been very inconsistent with handing in her homework packet each day. Since we think this teaches a child responsibility, could you please make sure that she finishes her homework each day? Thank you very much. Signed, the teacher. First, you will see one possible wrong way of responding to this email. Then that will be followed by a right way, as Rebecca, the mom, uses the ladder of integrity to get clear on her values.
Max, did you see the email that Lindsay's teacher sent over? I can't believe this. She's only 5 years old.
No, I'm sorry.
I can't believe this. I mean, what are they gonna do? Penalize her for not doing her homework every night on material she already knows?
Yeah, I I honestly don't know.
This is ridiculous. She's 5 years old. I mean, don't you think we should call the principal and tell him how ridiculous this
Sure,
is?
honey, if that's what you want to do.
Honestly, I want to call the teacher myself and give her a piece of my mind. I mean, she's 5. Why are they putting this kind of pressure on kids her age? And who is she to judge us? To put pressure on us? To put pressure on her? This is a waste of her time and ours.
Yeah, honey, I don't know what to say.
Max, did you get the email from Lindsay's teacher this morning?
No, sorry. I've just been swamped all day. I really haven't had a chance to check over my emails.
Well, it came, and when it did, I was initially really angry and upset and frustrated, and I couldn't stop thinking about it. So I took a few deep breaths, and I got out the ladder of integrity that we learned a few weeks ago.
That's good.
And I went through the sentence stems and tried to process what I was feeling and why I was feeling it. And I knew I needed to do more work on it, so I did it again an hour later. And that was helpful, but I still needed to get more clarity for myself, so I did it again later this afternoon. So would you be willing to go through it with me as I go through the sentence stems and go up the ladder?
Of course, I would love to, honey.
Okay, thank you. So I wrote this out, and I'll just go through the ladder with you.
Okay, yeah.
All right. So right now the issue on my mind is this email we got from Lindsay's teacher saying that she's being inconsistent in handing in her homework.
Okay.
And she asked us if we could make sure Lindsay has it done every day. And I'm anxious about this because I really don't like tensions and disagreements. And the thought of it makes my stomach turn inside out. And I'm also anxious that we might be thought of as bad parents. My part in this is I become defensive and shut down. The way I usually handle situations like this is to simply do what the other person wants and not take the time to really reflect on what I think. My need in this issue is to really get clear in myself about what is upsetting me and my values around this issue. My need is also to take time to talk with Lindsay's teacher so we can agree on next steps together.
That's good.
My feelings about this are anger and frustration and definitely defensive. And I have a deep fear that we might be viewed as bad parents. And what my reaction tells me about myself is I want other people's approval more than I care to admit. And what I usually do is give in to other people's wants so that I'm not perceived in a bad light. What my reaction also tells me about me is I have a hard time finding my voice and saying what I really think and feel. This issue is important to me because I value Lindsay and her development as a 5-year-old in every aspect of her life.
Yeah.
And she knows the material already. Her teacher even told us she's ahead of most of her class. So I value giving her experiences that help round out her development in ways that she can't get from school, like with music or swim lessons.
Right.
And for me, investing in those activities is a better use of her time than her finishing her homework packets each day.
I agree, yeah.
And I violate that value when I don't get clear about what I think and feel and then communicate that respectfully to Lindsay's teacher. I am not willing to just go along with the idea that filling out the homework packets will be the most important thing for Lindsay's growth and development.
Yeah.
One thing I could do to improve the situation is engaging with Lindsay's teacher in a transparent and respectful conversation. The most important thing I want her to know is that I do respect her work as a teacher, and I love how much Lindsay enjoys her class.
Yeah.
I think my most honest sharing will benefit our relationship because it will help us work together for Lindsay's sake, and we can support one another and have more talks in the future. I hope and look forward to sharing my perspective and working together for Lindsay's development. And I also want to understand more fully the reason behind her request for us.
Yeah, That's really good. Yeah, really proud of you.
Thanks.
And you're a great mom.
Thank you.
Well, the latter helped Rebecca a lot to understand where her anger was coming from and to get beyond it to her values. After she and Max were able to have a great talk about what to do, it was decided she would have a conversation with the teacher, which she did. While the parents' philosophy around homework may have differed from Lindsay's teacher, Rebecca and the teacher were able to share their perspectives with one another and agree on the right approach that fit Lindsay going forward. Now it's your turn. Let me invite you to turn off the video and follow the instructions in your workbook to climb the ladder of integrity yourself. Again, the ladder of integrity is not about confronting another person. In fact, the ladder of integrity is not about the other person at all. It's about getting clear within yourself, about helping us grow into more differentiated people. Differentiation refers to our capacity to define our life goals apart from the pressure of those around us. This involves hard work as it requires calming down and getting clear about what is important to us. We saw Rebecca do that around Lindsay's teacher's request. That is why it is not uncommon to go up the ladder several times to make sure all hints of blaming have been removed. That is when you know you are ready to talk to the other person. But there also may be times when, after working with the ladder, getting clear within yourself is enough, and there is no need for you to go to the other person at all.
Right. I mean, a friend of ours was recently asked to assume greater responsibility as a volunteer within a large Christian organization. Rather than simply say yes out of guilt and because of the great need the organization had, something she normally did in the past, she went up the ladder prayerfully to sort out her unease and get clear about her values. Why am I uneasy about saying yes to this? Well, it became clear to her that if she did this, she would be violating her own value of self-care and quality time with her family. This led her to say a healthy no, which she did. It wasn't necessary for her to explain the whole backstory of her values and process, etc., with the organization. Again, there are situations like this where the goal is just to get clear within yourself. We have used Climb the Ladder of Integrity in a variety of situations. We have used it in our marriage, in our parenting, and with staff at our church. For example, one of our staff who had tension with another coworker wrote out the ladder on his own, and then he went over it with me as a neutral person. It took a couple of times up the ladder for him to get to his core value. So don't be surprised if it takes you a couple of times of going up the ladder to get to your core value. But once he got clear about his core value, he no longer felt reactive, and he was able to have a non-blaming conversation with the coworker he had been avoiding. We are asking you to practice this skill before the next session. After doing the ladder, you may decide you want to have a conversation with the person with whom you have the issue, but it's not always necessary to do that. It may be enough for you to have just gotten clear on your values.
Now, Jesus is our model of integrity. He was able to hold on to his integrity during his short earthly life. He resisted the temptations and the voices around him to wander off from the clear path the Father had laid out for him. We wouldn't be here today with you if Jerry had not gotten clear on her values and integrity. This is what enabled her to come to me many years ago and say, "Pete, I quit the church that I was leading." It was a crisis and it felt like a disaster, but God would use it to profoundly change my life. Jerry's integrity forced me to look at where I was not living my own integrity. Things like where I was saying yes when I really wanted to say no, where I cared too much for what other people thought, and where I sometimes exaggerated to make myself look better than I really was. This drove me to God, who then met me during that difficult season. Not only was I radically transformed, but so was our marriage and our church. It also resulted in the birthing of emotionally healthy discipleship, which is now being used around the world. You see, when you find your integrity, everyone around you experiences a newfound freedom as well. We've seen this again and again. You will want to do week 6 on the ladder of integrity in the Emotionally Healthy Relationships Day by Day book. I have found that silence and stillness during times with God have been significant moments when God has melted layers of pretense and superficiality in my life. And I encourage you to be open for the Holy Spirit to speak to you during those times as well. Let me close now with a favorite Hasidic tale of mine that points to our tendency to live someone else's life and not our own. It goes like this. Rabbi Susia, when he was an old man, said this: "In the coming world, God will not ask, 'Why were you not Moses? Why were you not Jeremiah?' No, God will ask you, 'Why were you not you?' Why didn't you live out your own one unique, unrepeatable life?" For this reason, the ladder of integrity can serve as a powerful key to unlock the door into your spiritual maturity and the beautiful, unique life God has destined for you.